How do you? I mean, could you help us? Which you said is a $1 million question is the strategy to execution gap, and how do we synchronize, or how do we reduce that gap, and how do we do in this changing environment, in this environment where businesses want to grow, change the thought process from being the traditional way to a digital way, bring in all these philosophies, and definitely have those integral values of driving ESG, and believing in those, and then having a coherent, what we call a team strategy, and a team. So maybe, I mean, I would want first of all Bhaskar to react, and then Ajay to comment on it. That how do you bridge this gap, and how do you increase the coherence of the business with the team members?
So, and again, I'm going to keep things very simple. I've learned that if you want consistent performance, that means you want to overachieve every year, year in, year out. There's really two things which you can do in a company. One is drive collaborative engagement, which is all about purpose, values, leadership behaviors, the softer aspects, which I think all of us have been talking about. It's all about collaborative engagement. People will, how people respond when nobody's watching them, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of it is around the culture, the values, the purpose of the company. Again, I want to make a distinction between purpose and vision and mission. Purpose is outward in, vision is your aspiration, your ambition. But how the world perceives you, what they will miss is really your purpose. So, sometimes people make that difference, have that problem defining what is vision, mission, and what is, and I can tell you the difference between vision and mission, but that's not relevant. But purpose is outward in. Microsoft's purpose is to empower every individual. It's not about selling PCs anymore, right? And that is something which people look to Microsoft for. So that's the collaborative engagement. The second aspect is, again, what everybody's alluded to is disciplined execution. I'm using the word disciplined and execution because if you think about a lot of the examples which people have given, they've talked about how they have executed at the corporate level, at the business level, at the strategy level. And execution is about strategy. It's about executing to a strategy. If you don't execute to a strategy, it's aimless. You can say my productivity has gone up, I'm turning things around, but it doesn't serve the actual end result. These are really the only two things which companies need to be focusing on: collaborative engagement, and number two is disciplined execution based on a strategy.
So,
That
Bhaskar, I mean, definitely that's a good word, but ultimately, disciplined execution is an outcome, is what I believe. It's not an input. It is definitely an outcome that you perceive and you bring out. That's what execution is all about. So how do you bridge that gap so that those disciplined executions are possible? I understand your point on committing to an identity, or focusing on your purpose, and then that's the piece that you said first. And then the second piece on when you are looking at growth, you want to maybe have lean cost structures, you want to bring in digitalization. And how do you focus on those execution pieces? That's what the challenges in this defocused world are.
So, I can tell you that, it's all about people understanding their role, understanding the strategy, understanding what is the outcome which is expected of them, and then giving them the empowerment to be able to go out and make it happen. If they have to be told every day, it's like, for example, sales organization. What happens? The lowest guy in the totem gets a call from his area manager. How much have you sold? How much are you going to sell this week? Then the guy above the area manager will call up the area manager and ask him, what is your forecast for all your salespeople for the week? And then finally,
Mhm.
it will go to the director of sales. If you had an organization which was, how would I put, enabled with collaborative engagement, none of this would be required. It would happen all by itself. That's what is called disciplined execution. You can then add some technology. You can then say, okay, instead of this, now I'm going to put some technology. That's your strategy. Then I'm going to automate a lot of this. You could think about different ways in which what kind of technology you could use. Today, you have many choices. You could use CRM. You could use a simpler WhatsApp-based forecasting tool. You could do many things, but you have to decide what are the one which you want to go. So there's no shortcut to execution, but it is fundamentally built on the principle that everybody knows what they want to do. That's collaborative engagement without being told what to do. And you have to keep striving for that. It's not that it happens overnight. And number two is that you have a strategy which everybody understands, which everybody executes to. And again, I'll just close by saying when Satya Nadella took over Microsoft, Microsoft was about to die. It was called the dinosaur. And what did he do in 1 year? He took, when he joined, the market cap of the company was something like $300 billion. Today, it is $2.9 trillion, $2 trillion, right? All he did was to change the culture, was the first thing he focused on. That was the purpose, the values, the leadership behaviors, and the culture, the aspects of culture which had to change. And then he tinkered around with the strategy. And he changed the company from a software company to a platform-based company. From selling software as a license to, now that to him was the easiest part of it. The toughest part was the cultural piece. Right? That was the toughest piece, so that everybody knew what they had to do and in which way, what choices would they make every day without somebody telling them what to do. That was the toughest part. That took him longer. Changing the strategy and adopting a new strategy, you just told everybody what they had to do, right? Engineering, sales, marketing, finance, everybody knew what they had to do. Okay, so I'm making it sound very simple, but I believe that keeping things simple is the best way to run a business.
I understand, putting culture to work, yeah.
So if I could just very briefly comment on, so the great thoughts from Bhaskar, absolutely agree with everything. One thing that might help, Lalit, in terms of figuring out, what to do is to have a framework. And by a framework, I mean simply pieces of strategy and execution, which Suresh was talking about very eloquently, I think, very important. So put together, have a picture, literally a picture. This is my these are my target segments. This is my value proposition. These are my people. These are their skills. This is my culture. This is my community. And just take a look at that and just do a mental audit. Where is a breakdown in the whole framework? Where is a gap in this whole thing? And then begin to ask the 5 why questions. Okay, why does this gap exist? Well, I don't have the right people. Well, why don't I have the right people? Well, because we haven't been hiring. Why, all that kind of stuff. And then zoom into the core problem and then try and address each of these pieces. It's not rocket science, but it takes diligent effort to get to it. If you don't do that, you will do piecemeal initiatives, and that's going to result in lack of coherence all over again.
Yeah. Lalit, I would just like to, what Ajay was mentioning. I think that framework is so important because that framework actually gives you the clarity. If there is no clarity, that's how the execution actually suffers. If there is and make it very simple and very clear and focused, and then you're very clear about your values and culture, then it really happens. And of course, you also have a measurement system which measures people not just on the numbers, but are also on how they are performing on values. Also helps on values and culture. If I say will do culture is important, how they are performing on that execution is also extremely important. I think that's the reason why, particularly for companies at initial stages, this framework is so critical. And I named it as high impact performance HR model. I didn't call it as a strategy model. As a people model, so that it's all about people.
Yeah. So Suresh, very rightly, and I think Ajay mentioned it, that when the organization is small, normally promoters drive and entrepreneurs drive their strategy. But when the organization becomes larger, if you don't have a very good visibility about the strategy and you don't keep discussing it, at times it gets shambled, and there are different versions of strategy which which gets rolled out. So I think that's important to keep a mindful thought of that. And in between, if you happen to do a small merger or something, then once again you get a new stint of that strategy, whether you should change the strategy or you should be aligned with the strategy and change the process of that other company that you're acquiring. So those are some of the questions that we need to keep having a dialogue in. Yeah, anyway, I'll allow others to ask questions. Sorry.